Tyler Benson lounged in the corner booth of a high-end restaurant in downtown Los Angeles. His tailored suit hugged his lean frame perfectly, exuding the effortless confidence of a man born into privilege. Around him, his closest circle of business partners and friends laughed over cocktails, the kind of laughter only the very rich could afford, loud, carefree, and insulated from the real world. The conversation had turned to a game they often played, daring each other to outrageous feats, each more extravagant and absurd than the last. Tonight, however, Tyler was growing bored. The thrill of watching his friends squirm under pressure had long since faded, and he wanted something bigger. "Here's an idea," Tyler drawled, his emerald eyes gleaming with a hint of mischief. He set his glass of whiskey down and leaned forward, his voice dropping just enough to capture everyone's attention. "I'll marry the first homeless woman I find." A stunned silence fell over the group, broken only by the sound of ice clinking in glasses. His best friend and business partner, Daniel Grayson, arched an eyebrow. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," Tyler said, smirking. "I'll marry her, clean her up, and turn her into someone fit to sit at this table. It'll prove a point, money can fix anything." The table erupted in laughter, but Daniel remained skeptical. "And what do you get out of this little project?" "Proving my point," Tyler shot back, his confidence unwavering. "And, let's say, 50 grand from anyone who doubts I can do it." Daniel shook his head, a grin tugging at his lips. "You're insane." "But fine. I'll take that bet." By morning, the bet was all Tyler could think about. As his car idled near a park in the city, he scanned the streets with a casual air. His eyes landed on a woman sitting under a scraggly tree, a worn blanket draped over her shoulders. She looked to be in her late 20s, with wavy brown hair tucked under a baseball cap. Despite her situation, there was something striking about her, the way she sat upright, her gaze sharp and unyielding, as though daring the world to knock her down again. "This is the one," he murmured to himself. Stepping out of the car, Tyler adjusted his watch and approached her. "Hey," he began, flashing the kind of smile that had charmed boardrooms and supermodels alike. "Mind if I sit?" The woman glanced up, her expression unimpressed. "Depends. You planning to sell me something?" "No," Tyler said, chuckling. "Actually, I've got a proposition for you." She crossed her arms. "I'm listening." "Marry me." The words were as casual as if he'd asked for directions. When her eyebrows shot up, he added, "I know how it sounds, but hear me out. It's a business arrangement. You get out of this," he gestured to her surroundings, "and I get, well, it doesn't matter what I get." The woman snorted, her laugh dry and humorless. "You want me to marry you, a total stranger, for what? Charity?" "Call it opportunity," Tyler said smoothly. "I'll pay you $50,000 up front. You'll live in my house, wear nice clothes, and eat good food. At the end of the arrangement, you walk away with double that amount." Her gaze narrowed, skepticism flashing in her hazel eyes. "And what's the catch?" "No catch. Just follow my lead for a month. Pretend to be my wife in public, keep your side of the bargain, and that's it." She hesitated, and Tyler could see the wheels turning in her head. Finally, she sighed. "All right. But let's get one thing straight, I'm not doing this for you. I need the money for someone who actually matters." "Fair enough," Tyler said, extending a hand. "I'm Tyler, by the way." "Lucy," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. As Tyler walked back to his car, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't expected, curiosity. Lucy wasn't what he had envisioned for his little experiment, but there was something about her that intrigued him. She wasn't afraid to meet his gaze, and she didn't seem impressed or intimidated by him. "Lucy Harper," he thought with a smirk. "Let's see what you're made of." The courthouse was eerily quiet that morning, its beige walls and fluorescent lighting lending a sterile, almost surreal atmosphere to the occasion. Lucy Harper stood near the clerk's desk, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. She tugged at the hem of the plain dress Tyler had bought her, a simple blue sheath that fit well enough but felt foreign on her skin. Tyler Benson, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. Dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, he chatted casually with the officiant as though this were just another business meeting. He flashed Lucy a confident smile as she approached. "Ready for the big day?" She rolled her eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be." The ceremony was over in less than 10 minutes. No vows of love, no tears of joy, just a curt exchange of paperwork and a barely audible declaration of marriage. Lucy signed her name on the dotted line, her penmanship as sharp and deliberate as her demeanor. Tyler's signature, by contrast, was a flourish of practiced elegance. "Well, Mrs. Benson," Tyler said, slipping his arm around her waist for a staged photo, "welcome to the good life." Lucy forced a tight smile for the camera, resisting the urge to elbow him in the ribs. The photographer, a young man hired for the occasion, clicked away with little enthusiasm before handing Tyler the receipt. "Congratulations," he said flatly. "Thanks," Lucy muttered, stepping away as soon as the camera was lowered. By the time they reached Tyler's mansion in the Hollywood Hills, Lucy's initial irritation had simmered into quiet disbelief. The sprawling estate looked like something out of a magazine, glass walls reflecting the morning sun, perfectly manicured lawns, and a pool that sparkled like liquid diamonds. She followed Tyler through the massive double doors, her scuffed sneakers squeaking against the polished marble floor. "Nice place," she said, her voice tinged with sarcasm. Tyler grinned, leading her into the living room. "It's home. Make yourself comfortable." Comfortable wasn't exactly the word Lucy would have used. The house was beautiful, no doubt, but it felt more like a museum than a home. Every surface gleamed with pristine perfection, and the furniture looked like it had been chosen for aesthetics rather than functionality. "Here," Tyler said, handing her a sleek black credit card. "You'll need this. We've got an event tomorrow, and you'll want to look the part." Lucy stared at the card for a moment before taking it. "You know, this whole thing is ridiculous, right?" Tyler shrugged. "Ridiculous pays well." She couldn't argue with that. With a curt nod, she turned and headed upstairs to the guest room Tyler had assigned her. It was larger than most apartments she'd lived in, complete with a private bathroom and a walk-in closet. She tossed the credit card onto the nightstand and flopped onto the bed, staring up at the ceiling. For the first time, the reality of her situation began to sink in. She was married to a man she barely knew, living in a house that felt like the polar opposite of her world. It was temporary, she reminded herself. Just a month. Then she'd have enough money to help Michael, her friend in the hospital, and maybe even start fresh. The following day, Tyler and Lucy attended their first public event as a couple, a charity gala hosted by one of Tyler's business associates. Lucy felt like a fish out of water in the expensive dress he'd insisted she buy, but she held her head high, refusing to let anyone see her discomfort. Tyler introduced her to his colleagues with ease, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. "This is my wife, Lucy," he said repeatedly, the words rolling off his tongue as though he actually believed them. Lucy played her role well, smiling politely and offering just enough conversation to seem engaged. But beneath her calm exterior, she was seething. The glances she received from the other guests were a mix of curiosity and judgment, as though they could sense she didn't belong. Later that evening, as they sat in the back of Tyler's car on the way home, Lucy finally broke her silence. "You don't have to act like this is real, you know." Tyler glanced at her, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "All the hand-holding, the introductions, it's not necessary. I get that this is just a transaction." "It might be a transaction for us," Tyler said, leaning back in his seat, "but for everyone else, it needs to look real. That's the deal." Lucy crossed her arms, staring out the window. She hated that he was right. If this arrangement was going to work, they both had to play their parts. Still, the more time she spent with Tyler, the more she wondered why he'd even bothered with this ridiculous bet in the first place. As the car pulled into the driveway, Tyler turned to her with a sly grin. You did well tonight, by the way. Almost convincing. Lucy snorted. Don't get used to it. Tyler laughed, and for a brief moment, the tension between them eased. But as Lucy climbed the stairs to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Something told her that Tyler Benson was more complicated than he let on, and that this arrangement was going to be far more than she'd bargained for. The days following the gala settled into an uneasy rhythm. Tyler and Lucy coexisted like two strangers sharing a stage, each performing their role to perfection but keeping their true selves hidden behind the curtain. For Tyler, it was a game, a challenge to see how long he could keep up appearances before she cracked. For Lucy, it was survival. She reminded herself daily of why she'd agreed to this charade. Michael needed her. But cracks began to form. Tyler noticed them first. It was in the way Lucy excused herself from his business dinners to visit the hospital late at night, or how she avoided discussing her past. She was hiding something, and curiosity got the better of him. One evening, after she left the house again, Tyler made a decision. He called in a favor from an old friend who specialized in digging up information. 2 days later, Tyler found himself staring at a manila envelope on his desk. He hesitated for a moment, his fingers brushing the edges, before finally tearing it open. Inside was a stack of documents, photographs, and articles, all pieces of Lucy Harper's life, laid bare. Tyler's eyes skimmed the headlines first. Activist Harper fights corporate corruption. Whistleblower targeted in lawsuit. Harper loses home after legal battle. The photographs told an even clearer story. Lucy standing at a podium, addressing a crowd of protesters. Lucy shaking hands with a reporter outside a courthouse. Lucy in handcuffs, being led away by police. The final image, however, stopped Tyler cold. It was Lucy sitting on a park bench, the same park where he'd found her, her face drawn and tired, but her eyes as fierce as ever. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of realization pressing down on him. Lucy wasn't just a woman down on her luck. She was a fighter, someone who had taken on the kind of companies he worked with every day. Including, he realized with a sinking feeling, his own. That evening, when Lucy returned home, Tyler was waiting for her in the living room. She froze in the doorway, her gaze flickering to the envelope on the coffee table. "You've been busy," she said, her voice tight. Tyler gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing, her arms crossed. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, holding up one of the articles. "Tell you what?" she shot back. "That I made the mistake of caring about people more than money? That I stood up to companies like yours and paid the price for it?" "Lucy, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," she interrupted. "Because guys like you don't have to think about what happens to people like me. You make your money, and the rest of us deal with the fallout." Her words stung more than he expected, and for the first time, Tyler struggled to find a response. Lucy took a deep breath, her shoulders trembling slightly. "I lost everything, Tyler. My home, my career, my reputation, everything. And now I'm here, playing house with the kind of person who ruined my life. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" Tyler stood, his usual confidence replaced with uncertainty. "I didn't know the company had ties to anything like that. If I had..." "Don't," Lucy said, her voice softer now but no less firm. "Don't pretend you're any different. You're just like the rest of them." She turned and started for the stairs, but Tyler's voice stopped her. "I can't change what happened, Lucy. But maybe I can do something now." She paused, glancing over her shoulder. "You can't fix this, Tyler. Not with money. Not with anything." As her footsteps disappeared upstairs, Tyler sank back onto the couch, the envelope still in his hands. For the first time in years, he felt truly powerless. He had entered this arrangement with the belief that he could control everything and everyone around him. But Lucy Harper had proven to be something he hadn't anticipated, a mirror reflecting all the things he hated to see in himself. Lucy stayed in her room the next day, avoiding Tyler entirely. She couldn't face him, not after what she'd said. It wasn't just anger that fueled her words, it was pain. Being in his world, wearing his clothes, and pretending to be someone she wasn't, it was suffocating. But there was something else she couldn't ignore, the look on Tyler's face when she walked away. It wasn't arrogance or indifference. It was guilt. And that made her feel something she wasn't prepared for. Pity. That evening, Lucy ventured downstairs, her resolve steeled. She found Tyler in his study, poring over documents with a furrowed brow. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. "I need to know," she began, her voice steady. "Why did you do this? The bet, the marriage, all of it. What's the point?" Tyler leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. For once, he didn't have a quick answer. "I thought it would be easy," he admitted finally. "I thought I could prove that money fixes everything. But you're proving me wrong." Lucy blinked, caught off guard by his honesty. "So, what now?" Tyler stood, crossing the room until he was only a few feet away. "Now, I start proving you wrong. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to fix this." She stared at him, searching his face for any hint of deceit. Instead, she found something unexpected: sincerity. For the first time, Lucy allowed herself to wonder if Tyler Benson might be capable of change. The days following their confrontation were tense but transformative. Tyler Benson was no longer the same man who had viewed his marriage to Lucy as a frivolous wager. The weight of her story, combined with the growing awareness of his own complicity, forced him to reevaluate his values. For once in his life, Tyler found himself wanting to do more than just win a bet. He wanted to make things right. Tyler's first step was his business. He spent long hours poring over the practices of his family's company, uncovering a trail of shady dealings that left him sick to his stomach. Contracts that crushed small businesses, loopholes that exploited workers, and policies that prioritized profit over people. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. One evening, Tyler called Lucy into his office. She hesitated in the doorway, clearly wary of him after their last exchange. "What is it?" she asked. "I need your help," he said simply, gesturing to the stacks of files on his desk. "If I'm going to clean this up, I need to know what I'm up against." Lucy approached cautiously, glancing at the papers. Her eyes widened as she recognized familiar names, companies she had fought against, contracts she had tried to expose. "You're serious about this?" she asked, her tone skeptical. "Dead serious," Tyler replied. "I can't change what's already happened, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again." For a moment, she said nothing, her expression unreadable. Then, with a small nod, she pulled up a chair. "All right. Let's get to work." Over the next few days, Lucy and Tyler worked side by side, poring over documents and brainstorming ways to overhaul the company. Their partnership was tense at first, marked by sharp exchanges and lingering mistrust. But as time passed, they began to find common ground. Tyler learned to value Lucy's insights, and Lucy, reluctantly, started to see a side of Tyler she hadn't expected: determined, thoughtful, and even kind. Their dynamic shifted further when Lucy's friend Michael took a turn for the worse. She received the call late one night, her face pale as she listened to the doctor's update. Tyler found her sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Is everything all right?" he asked gently. Lucy shook her head, her voice trembling. "Michael's condition is getting worse. He needs a surgery I can't afford, not even with the money from this deal." Without hesitation, Tyler reached for his phone. "What's the hospital's number?" "I'll cover it." Lucy stared at him, stunned. "You don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted. "You've done more for me in the past few weeks than I deserve. Let me do this." Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time, Lucy let her guard down completely. "Thank you," she whispered. The next day, Tyler made good on his promise, covering all of Michael's medical expenses and ensuring he received the best care possible. Lucy accompanied Tyler to the hospital to visit her friend, and the sight of him speaking warmly to Michael left her shaken. She wasn't sure when it had happened, but somewhere along the way, Tyler Benson had stopped being the man she despised. Back at the mansion, Lucy found herself standing in the doorway of Tyler's office, watching him work. He looked up, startled to see her there. "What's up?" he asked. "I wanted to say thank you," she said softly. "Not just for Michael, but for everything." Tyler smiled, his usual arrogance replaced with something softer. "You don't have to thank me. You were right about me, Lucy. I was blind to how much damage I've caused. But you've opened my eyes." Lucy stepped into the room, her gaze steady. "And what are you going to do with them now that they're open?" Tyler stood, closing the distance between them. "Fix what I can. Prove to you, and to myself, that I'm not the man I used to be." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Lucy felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: hope. A week later, Tyler stood before the board of directors of Benson Enterprises, presenting a plan that was nothing short of revolutionary. He outlined sweeping changes to the company's practices, from implementing fair labor policies to creating initiatives that supported small businesses and environmental sustainability. The boardroom was silent when he finished, the older members exchanging skeptical glances. "This is a bold proposal, Tyler," one of them said. "Are you sure this is the direction we should be taking?" "I'm certain," Tyler replied, his voice firm. "We've spent years building our fortune on the backs of others. It's time we start giving back." Lucy watched from the corner of the room, her chest tightening with a mix of pride and disbelief. She had doubted Tyler's sincerity at first, but there was no denying the passion in his voice now. He meant every word. After the meeting, Tyler found Lucy waiting for him in the hallway. "What did you think?" he asked nervously. "I think," she began, her voice trailing off as she smiled. "I think you might actually pull this off." That night, as they sat by the pool overlooking the city, Tyler turned to Lucy. "I know this started as a stupid bet," he admitted, "but I want you to know it's become so much more than that. You've changed me, Lucy." Lucy looked at him, her walls finally crumbling. "You've changed me too," she said quietly. For the first time, their partnership felt real, not a transaction, but a connection built on mutual respect and understanding. And as the stars reflected in the water, both Tyler and Lucy knew they were no longer the people they had been when this journey began. The air was warm and fragrant, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine from the garden outside Tyler's mansion. Lucy stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, gazing out at the view of Los Angeles twinkling in the distance. The city seemed smaller now, less overwhelming, as though her time with Tyler had reshaped not just her life but also her perspective. Behind her, Tyler appeared in the doorway, holding 2 glasses of wine. "Lost in thought?" he asked, offering her a glass. Lucy turned, accepting it with a small smile. "A little. It feels strange, you know. To be here, with everything that's happened." Tyler nodded, moving to stand beside her. "Strange good or strange bad?" "Strange good," she admitted, the words coming more easily than she expected. "I didn't think I'd ever feel safe again." Her confession hung in the air, and Tyler took a sip of his wine, clearly considering his next words. "Lucy," he began, "there's something I need to say before this arrangement ends." She raised an eyebrow. "This arrangement? You mean the bet?" He winced at her bluntness but nodded. "Yes. The bet. When this started, I thought it was just a game. Something to prove how clever I was. But now," he set his glass down on the windowsill, his voice softening. "Now, I realize how wrong I was, not just about the bet, but about everything. You've shown me what it means to care about something bigger than myself. And for that, I'm grateful." Lucy stared at him, her heart pounding. She had spent weeks building walls around her emotions, determined to keep this arrangement strictly transactional. But now, looking at Tyler, she felt those walls beginning to crumble. "Tyler," she said carefully, "you don't owe me anything. You've already done more than I ever expected." "That's not what this is about," he said, shaking his head. "I don't want to just walk away when this is over. I want us to keep building something, together." The next day, Tyler put the final touches on his plan to transform Benson Enterprises. His presentation to the press was a bold move, one that risked alienating investors and upsetting years of entrenched policies. But Tyler was unwavering. With Lucy by his side, he stepped up to the podium and faced a crowd of reporters. "Good morning," he began, his voice steady. "Today, I'm announcing a major shift in the way Benson Enterprises operates. For too long, we've prioritized profits over people, and that ends now. Effective immediately, we're implementing new policies to ensure fair treatment of workers, environmental sustainability, and community support." The room erupted with questions, but Tyler held up a hand to quiet them. "I know this won't be easy, and I know we'll face criticism. But I believe this is the right thing to do, not just for our company, but for the world." Lucy watched from the side, her chest swelling with pride. This was the Tyler Benson she had doubted could exist, a man who was willing to sacrifice his comfort and power for something greater. In the weeks that followed, the changes Tyler implemented began to take effect. Workers received better wages, local communities benefited from outreach programs, and environmental groups praised the company's new green initiatives. The media dubbed it the Benson turnaround, and while some investors balked, others rallied behind Tyler's vision. Meanwhile, Lucy found herself stepping into a new role. Tyler had offered her a position leading the company's social impact division, and after much hesitation, she accepted. It was a chance to use her experience and passion to make a tangible difference, and she couldn't pass it up. As they worked together, their relationship deepened. What had started as a bet became a partnership, one built on mutual respect and a shared vision for the future. They argued, they laughed, and slowly but surely, they began to trust each other completely. One evening, Tyler surprised Lucy by taking her to the park where they had first met. They sat on the same bench, the memories of that fateful day flooding back. "You know," Lucy said, her tone teasing, "if someone had told me I'd end up here again, married to you of all people, I would have laughed in their face." Tyler chuckled, leaning back on the bench. "And if someone had told me I'd be sitting here with you, trying to prove I'm not a complete idiot, I wouldn't have believed them either." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Then Tyler turned to her, his expression serious. "Lucy, I don't want this to end. Not the company, not the work we're doing, and definitely not us." Her breath caught as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple yet elegant ring. "This time, no bets, no contracts. Just us. What do you say?" Lucy stared at the ring, her emotions swirling. She thought of everything they had been through, the arguments, the breakthroughs, the sacrifices. And in that moment, she realized she didn't just trust Tyler, she loved him. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I say yes." The following months marked a new chapter for Tyler and Lucy. Together, they launched a foundation aimed at supporting causes close to Lucy's heart: affordable housing, workers' rights, and environmental justice. Their story became an inspiration, a testament to the power of redemption and the strength of unlikely partnerships. As they stood on the stage at the foundation's opening ceremony, Tyler glanced at Lucy, his hand tightly clasping hers. "We've come a long way," he murmured. She smiled up at him, her eyes shining. "And we're just getting started." With the applause of the crowd ringing in their ears, Tyler and Lucy stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next, together.